In this video, we're going to take a look at creating a holder for these batteries. I am invested in Black & Decker's 20-volt system. I have several drills and various tools that use these batteries. I have 6 of those batteries, and I need to put them up on my pegboard. So get them out of the way, but leave the option to charge them. So we're going to do something very simple, 3D print something that will hold the batteries. Let's see how it looks. So for this model, we're actually going to create something like this. Let me just turn off that battery. This will be the finished model. I'll show you how we get there. It's pretty straightforward. And I'll show you how we print it, create it, and all that good stuff. The battery here is just a mock-up of the battery so that I can see that it all fits together properly. If you look in there, you can see it's fitting in quite nicely with a little bit of clearance. Everything should be good. And of course, the battery has some radii on it as well, so it's going to fit even better into those corners. So let's turn the battery off. Let's see how we get to this model. Okay, as usual, I'm going to show you quickly my FreeCAD version. It's still the same as I used in the last video. It's 0.20.2. And it's this revision 29177 in the Git. So I haven't updated it. I haven't been back and looked since the last video. I'm going to probably go back at the end of this week and take a look. But for now, we're using this version. So we're going to do the usual thing. I normally use my macro, the startup macro, which many of you have and have seen. If you have that, you can use it. But to save people getting confused, I'm going to do it the long way. So we're going to create a file. We're going to create we're actually in part design. So if you open your FreeCAD and it comes up to a screen, which shows you some quick start stuff, you want to get into the part design workbench. You can close all that quick start stuff. You don't need that. So then we're going to do a part. We're going to create a body, and we're going to pop a sketch in there. We're going to do it on the XY plane, and simply that back plate is a centered rectangle. I'm going to drop that in like that. And it has a couple of holes in it, so I'm going to pop those in. And of course, what do we know? So from a geometry standpoint, it's a centered rectangle. So if I change this side, it's going to change both sides because it automatically gets the symmetry constraints applied to it. I'm also going to take that hole, and I'm going to make them equal. And then I'm going to also make them sit on the same axis this way so that they're in line. So now if I move one, they're both going to move together. And then I'm going to make them symmetrical. So I'm going to take that, hit this center line, and make those symmetrical. So now I have 2 holes that are equal size, and if I move them, they are moving together. So I need a dimension that goes from the center of that one to the center of that one because they're going to be on centers for my pegboard. And my pegboard is actually centered. It has 1-inch centers. So you got to go whatever's nearest to inches to get those centers right. And then I need a dimension for this diameter. And I always use this now with this newer version. It decides whether or not it's an arc or a circle that it's constraining. And it always works perfectly. I love that. I'm going to make mine 6.5 millimeters because I want it to be in clearance. And I know those things are sort of just over 5 or something. And then I'm going to do a dimension that goes across this whole thing. And I'm going to do a dimension this way as well. So that gives me the outside shape. So the only dimension I need to do is from here to here. So there you go. So now we're completely dimensioned. I am going to change that to an 8 millimeter dimension, just so I got a little bit of gap here. This one I think needs to be 200. So this one is going to be 100. And then I'm going to modify this one to 177.8. And that's the size of my piece. Now, I'm going to add some radii here. I could do it here in the sketch, or I can just add a radius afterwards in the model, which is what I'm going to choose to do. So I'm going to close that, and then we're going to pad it. And I'm only going to make it 3 millimeters thick. I don't think it needs to be any thicker than that. So that's the back plate done. And now, as I said, I'm going to add radii to these corners here, but I'm not doing that until last. We're going to do everything else first. So the next bit we've got to do is the piece that actually holds the batteries. So we're going to do a new sketch. So make sure that body is our active body. We'll create a sketch, and this sketch is going to be on this plane here. And I'm going to go back and just turn that part on because I want to be able to see it. And then I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to create that part. And I just noticed something what I'm going to change. So let me just close the sketch quickly. We're going to change this pad so that it is reversed, because I want the bottom of the pad to be at the bottom of this line here. It's not super important, but it's just something I prefer. So now when I create this part, I know it's going to look something like this. Should try and get those to be horizontal. And I'm going to use my sectional view, which gives me a section through here so I can see this part here. And that's all good. And now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make that horizontal. I should have. And that should be vertical. Okay, so now we've made that pretty. Then I'm going to give this a dimension across here. I'm going to make that 3 millimeters as well. And then I'm going to make this, I'm actually leave this at 4.5. And then I measured the battery, so I know how far this has to be. So I will add the dimensions per the measurements, and we'll be able to set this up. So just bear with me 1 second. Okay, I changed my mind on this guy. I'm going to make that 3.5, make it a little thicker. And then I'm going to give this a dimension from here to here of 1.5. And then I have a dimension that goes across here of 17 millimeters. So I know that that fits in properly. And then I need a dimension that goes from here to here. It's going to be 29.8. So that makes sure that thing is correct. And then I'm going to need another dimension just to lock it in the left and right. But that's going to come off this T-piece. So let's draw the T-piece next. So the T-piece is going to go across here, go up here, out here, up here, across there, down there, come back this way, and touch with that. And we're just going to make sure everything is horizontal and vertical as it's supposed to be. And then, of course, with this one, I can say that this and this are, so let's go with that one. And let's just get rid of that one for a minute. I don't know if I say this one and this one are in line. There we go. And then this one and this one, can't reach it. I'll go with that one, doesn't matter. So now that's locking that guy up that way. And then, of course, we want this and this to be symmetrical around there. There you go. Okay, so then that. So now that should lock that guy up. It should lock it up this way. And the only thing we need to worry about is getting a distance here. So we can do that. Okay, so we want this and this to be equal. So I'm going to select that. I'll select, let's bring it over there. Select that. We'll make those equal. Then we want a distance between here and here because that's the important part for us. I'm struggling to select that top there. Get a little closer. There we go. We can give that a dimension. And from my measurements, that has to be 46. And then literally we're going to just create the same thing on the other side. Now we could use some mirroring and all those kinds of things here, but to be honest, with it being so simple, I don't think we need to do that. I am going to just do this. I'm going to take that point and set them horizontally so that they have the same height. And then we're going to create this side. So it's going to be somewhere here. Okay, so we pretty much have the second part done. Now we're just going to tie these by geometry. And this is kind of the novel part of this, is everything is going to be similar. So I don't have to do a lot of dimensioning across the other side. And of course, if I make this and this point symmetrical here, and then I make this point and this point symmetrical, that will lock this guy up that way. And then the last thing I need to do is to make this and this arm equal, and that will lock everything in. So basically, I have all of this done by just dimensioning this part, and then that keeps everything set. So now we have that sketch fully constrained. We're going to close that one, and we will pad it. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a pad in 2 directions, or 2 dimensions. And our pad first dimension, which is going that way, we want to come down to level with this face. So to do that, we will make it 50 millimeters. As that piece is 100 millimeters tall. And then the other way, we just want to be 10. So that's plenty that way, because we want the battery to sit up here with the bottom part sticking out there, and then these holes are going to go onto the pegboard. So that is going to be our model. And then all we need to do is we're going to put some radii on there. One thing we will do is we'll go into this pad and we'll say refine equals true. What that will do, let me tab away from it, is if you look there, it got rid of those lines because they were coincident lines basically. And then what we're going to do is we're going to apply some radii. So what I want to do is I'm going to put a 2 millimeter radius on that piece there. So I'm going to select a point. Sometimes when you're selecting, if you zoom in, you get better onto the line. You can select this whole face or that whole face, and it will do radii around the edge, but generally I don't do that. I want to get in on the line. So I'm going to add a radius there of 2 millimeters. And then I'm going to do that also. I'm going to say add I'm going to do it here as well. And I'm going to do it here as well. And I'm going to turn this thing around. Going to add here. Add here. A little tricky to get those lines, to be fair. And the closer in you get, the easier it gets. I guess you have less distance to move. And then we're going to put those same 2 millimeters up on the outer edge, I think. So I'll make those 2 millimeters as well. So we'll do that edge. And we'll do that edge. And these ones, I think we're going to do 1.5 because they slot into the battery. So I'm going to say okay for that. Then I'm going to get this edge. I'm going to go with a 1.5 for this. And I'm going to add all those other faces, all those other edges, I should say. Edges, edges, edges. Turn that around a little bit. Get that bottom edge. 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 And that's all my edges there that I want. That looks good. I'm going to say okay to that. So that's the outside edge of that. And then, as I said, I'm going to add a radius on these edges of 5, I think. Just 5. Get that edge. That little edge. And then we're going to get that edge there. So that's all those. And there we have it. That's going to be our model. And I'm going to 3D print that. And then we'll take a look at it once it's 3D printed and see how the battery sits in it and make sure everything works well. But this is a good example of how to do a sketch, minimize the amount of dimensions that you need, but get everything put together simply, and breaking it down into very simple pieces. I don't want to do anything complex, so I don't want to try and sketch this whole surface here and then change it after that and cut pieces away. There's no need. Let's just keep it simple, and we can create some cool models without having to do anything crazy. So let's have a look at it once it's 3D printed, and we'll see how the battery fits. So here's the great news, is it all fits in perfectly and they hang beautifully. So I've got 2 batteries in there now. They sit nicely, there's a good distance between them. They sit in there. And there is one problem. Remember this guy. So I want this guy to clip on there so that when they're hanging, I can plug them in and do charging. That's my plan. Well, that doesn't quite fit. Now here's the beauty of parametric design. I'm going to change it, make it fit, print another one, and I'll see you after that. Okay, so here's what I decided to do. I am going to go back into my original pad, bring that back into the middle, and I'm going to have to delete this constraint because I'm going to make this piece shorter by 15 mil. So let's do that. Let's go ahead, and we are going to take this constraint here. We're going to take that one and we're going to delete it. There you go. And we'll delete that one. And then I'm going to apply a constraint across here. So I'm going to keep it symmetrical this way. Now what I can do is I can delete this dimension. And I'm going to dimension it from here to here. Keep that as 50. I'm going to dimension it from here to here. I'm going to make that one 35. Close that. And now it hasn't updated yet because this is coming down 50 if you remember. So I'm going to go to there. I'm going to go here. I'm going to change that to 35. And then we'll let it do its update. And now everything looks good. So that's basically what we're going to do. So I've shortened this bottom part. So the battery is going to sit in the same height, but it's going to stick out a bit more at the bottom so that I can connect the charger. So that's the beauty of Parametric. Now this one, it wasn't just a simple dimension change. I had to change a couple of things about the way it was made, but not difficult. And now it is going to work exactly as we want it to. So I'll print it and I'll let you see. So this is the final product. It actually works pretty well. I like the way it holds both batteries, has the two holes, so I can put it straight on my pegboard. And as you can see, I can get the charger connected while it's hanging there. It should work perfectly. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Of course, you can always join and become a channel member, or you can join our Patreon. All the links are below. I appreciate you taking time to watch the video. I look forward to making the next one. We're going to do a couple of laser ones next. I think I'm going to do one with the Monport laser and then one with the auto laser. And we'll be done. See you in the next one.